Stop the scroll. Before we plunge into this emotional battlefield of pride, betrayal, and a life-changing photograph, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. And tell us in the comments, what city are you watching from right now? When you finish the story, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Now, sit back and enjoy every detail. Part 1. The Ghost of a Decision. The glass and steel skyscraper soared like a fortress in New York City's financial district, reflecting the cold, gray November clouds. On the 25th floor, Marcus Thorne adjusted the knot of his Italian tie for the third time, while gazing out at the city from his corner office. At 38, he had built a tech and real estate empire that stretched from Silicon Valley to Miami. But this morning, not even his success could quell the tension eating at his chest. His green eyes, the color of a stormy sea, showed the fatigue of sleepless nights. His dark hair, always slicked back, was beginning to show premature silver streaks at the temples. His 6'1" athletic build still commanded attention in the boardroom, but Marcus knew that something inside him had fractured 6 months ago. His efficient, middle-aged executive assistant, Eleanor, poked her head through the mahogany door. "Mr. Thorne, the Dubai investors are waiting in the boardroom." Marcus nodded without looking away from the window. For months, he had avoided thinking about her. That laugh that used to fill his Manhattan penthouse. Those hands that danced in the air when she talked about her dreams. Isabella "Izzy" Reyes had been a hurricane in his ordered life. 28 years old, with raven hair that cascaded in waves to her shoulders, and almond-shaped eyes the color of dark honey. She was petite, barely 5'3", but when she stepped onto a stage, she transformed into a giant. They had shared 3 years of intense love and epic battles. He, accustomed to everyone obeying his orders. She, free as the wind, with an artistic career that took her to festivals and theaters across the country. Marcus's jealousy had been legendary in their social circles. He couldn't stand the applause she received, the eyes of other men following her every move, the dance partners who held her waist. "Your problem, Marcus," she had told him in their last argument, with that husky voice that drove him crazy, "is that you mistake love for possession." The European tour offer had been the final straw. 6 months in major capitals, working with top contemporary choreographers. It was the dream of her life. "If that's your priority, Izzy, good luck. But without me," he had snapped, standing in his penthouse living room, fists clenched and pride wounded. She had packed in silence. There were no screams, no tears, just the sound of the suitcase zipping up and the elevator door taking her away forever. Marcus blinked, returning to the present. He picked up his mobile to check emails before the meeting, when the screen lit up with a new message. The number wasn't saved in his contacts, but he immediately recognized the New York area code. It was an image. His pulse quickened when he saw the photograph. There was Izzy, in what looked like a hospital room, wrapped in a light blue gown. She had deep circles under her eyes, her hair carelessly tied back, and in her arms, a baby. A tiny infant wrapped in a white blanket with pink trim. Marcus felt the floor open up beneath him. When had she given birth? Whose child was this? Why was he being sent this photo? His hands trembled as he zoomed in on the image. Izzy was looking at the baby with a tenderness he remembered perfectly. The same expression she had when petting stray cats or talking about the children she wanted to have one day. Their children. They had planned that once. The phone slipped from his grasp, hitting the marble desk with a dull thud. Had she moved on that fast? Had she found someone else? Or could it be? Marcus calculated mentally. 6 months since the separation. If the baby was newborn, it wasn't impossible. but the photo's timestamp read 2 hours ago. She would have been a single mother. The child would be his. Interaction point 1. What kind of secret could be hiding behind this unexpected image that has just changed everything? What would you sacrifice if you suddenly found out you had a child you didn't know about? Part 2. The echo of a decision. Marcus stood frozen for several minutes, his gaze fixed on the phone screen. The image of Izzy and the baby seemed to burn his retinas. His fingers, usually steady when closing multi-million-dollar deals, trembled as he dialed the number from which the photo had arrived. First ring. Second. On the third, he heard a familiar voice, but not the one he expected. Hello? It was Lena, Izzy's younger sister, with that familiar Brooklyn lilt. Lena, it's Marcus. His voice sounded hoarse, as if he hadn't used it in years. An awkward silence stretched across the line. He could perfectly imagine the surprise on the 25-year-old's face. Oh, God, Marcus, the photo was a mistake. Lena's voice cracked slightly. I thought I was sending it to Mom, but your number is still before hers in my contacts. Where is she? The question came out as a contained roar. At Mount Sinai Hospital, maternity ward, room 504. The words spilled out of Lena like water from a broken dam. Marcus, the baby, But Marcus had already hung up. His legs carried him automatically toward the door, completely ignoring the boardroom full of suited men awaiting his presence. Eleanor intercepted him in the hallway with a folder of urgent documents. Mr. Thorne, the Dubai investors need you to review the contracts before. Cancel everything. His voice sliced through the air like a knife. Everything today, everything tomorrow. But sir, that's $50 million in investment. Marcus stopped short, turning to her with a look that had made partners and competitors alike tremble. But this time, behind the intensity was something more. Panic. I said cancel everything, Eleanor. The woman nodded, recognizing in 30 years of work that there were times when Marcus Thorne was not a boss, but a man on the edge of a cliff. The drive to the hospital was torture. His Mercedes AMG, usually a refuge of tranquility, now felt like a cage. The streets of Manhattan blurred past the tinted windows as his mind navigated between memories and speculation. He remembered the last night they spent together. Izzy had cooked dinner in his designer kitchen, staining the white marble with tomato sauce and laughing when he complained about the mess. Afterward, they had made love with that intensity only they knew, amidst whispers and promises that neither knew would be their last. She must have been pregnant that night. He found an emergency parking spot at the hospital and left his car, ignoring the inevitable ticket. His Italian shoes echoed against the linoleum as he walked through hallways smelling of disinfectant and hope. I'm looking for room 504, maternity, he told the receptionist. Are you family? Thorne. What exactly was he? Ex-boyfriend? Possible father? A stranger who had lost all right to be there. I am the father. The words left his mouth before he could stop them, charged with a conviction he didn't know he possessed. The elevator ride felt endless. Each floor passed was another opportunity to turn back and run. But something stronger than his wounded pride pushed him forward. When the doors opened, the hallway stretched before him like a tunnel to an uncertain future. Room 501, 502, 503. Marcus stopped outside the slightly ajar door. From inside came the sound of quiet conversation and the occasional soft cry of a newborn. He raised his hand to knock, but froze when he heard Izzy's voice for the first time in 6 months. I know it's hard, little one. I'm scared too. It was the same tone she used when calming him after his jealous outbursts, that mix of firmness and tenderness that had made him fall madly in love. Marcus closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open. The room was small and bright, and there, on the hospital bed, she was. Izzy had lost weight, Her dark circles spoke of sleepless nights. She wore an oversized hospital shirt, and her hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. But she was beautiful. God, she was so beautiful. It hurt to look at her. In her arms rested a tiny baby, wrapped in the white blanket with teddy bears. The baby had the flushed, wrinkled skin of a newborn, a tuft of dark hair, and eyes that, though closed, promised to be expressive. Izzy looked up and froze completely. Color fled her face. Marcus! His name on her lips sounded like a prayer and a condemnation at the same time. He took a step forward, then another, until he was at the foot of the bed. His eyes couldn't leave the baby. Is he mine? The question hung in the air, weighted with 6 months of pain, wounded pride, and unresolved love. Izzy clutched the baby protectively to her chest, as if Marcus were a threat, instead of the man who had once promised her the world. His name is Matteo, she whispered without answering directly. He was born 2 days ago, premature at 7 months. Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the gut. 7 months. The math was implacable. Why didn't you tell me? His voice cracked despite his efforts to remain composed. Izzy's eyes filled with tears she refused to shed. Because every time I tried to call you after I left, you hung up. Because when I showed up at your office 3 months ago, your secretary told me you had orders not to receive me. Because I thought... She stopped, biting her lower lip. I thought it was better for Matteo to grow up knowing his father simply wasn't around, rather than knowing he didn't want him. Marcus took another step closer, and this time Izzy didn't flinch. Can I see him? Izzy hesitated for an eternal moment. Then, slowly, she turned the baby so Marcus could see his face. Matteo's eyes were closed, but his tiny features already showed hints of personality. His mother's small, upturned nose, but the strong jawline Marcus recognized in the mirror every morning. My God, he murmured, extending a trembling hand toward the baby, but stopping inches away from touching him. He's perfect. At that moment, as if sensing his father's presence, Matteo opened his eyes, and Marcus Thorne, the corporate magnate who had conquered international markets and never backed down from a challenge, felt his world both collapse and rebuild at the same time. Because Matteo's eyes were the exact same stormy green as his own. Part 3. A mother's fury. The silence that followed the exchange of glances was so intense, it felt as though the world had pressed pause. In those tiny green eyes, Marcus saw a reflection of himself he hadn't known existed. Vulnerable, full of possibility. Can I touch him? Marcus's voice sounded strange, stripped of all authority. Izzy nodded slowly. Be careful of his head. He's still very small. Marcus extended his index finger toward Matteo's closed hand. When the baby's soft skin brushed his, an electric current shot through his body. Matteo, as if moved by a primal instinct, wrapped his tiny fingers around his father's, with a surprising strength for someone so minuscule. He's so small, Marcus murmured, his voice husky. He's okay. Premature babies sometimes have complications, but the doctors say he's out of danger. Izzy reassured him. He spent his first 24 hours in the NICU, but they brought him here last night. Marcus looked up abruptly. You were alone? Through all of this, you were completely alone? The question hit Izzy like a slap. Tears that she had been holding back for days welled up in her eyes. Lena came up from Miami as soon as she could, but she arrived this morning. My mother is looking after my cousin's kids and couldn't travel until tomorrow. Yes, Marcus. I was alone when my water broke at 3 a.m. I was alone for 14 hours of labor. I was alone when the doctors told me they had to do an emergency C-section because the cord was tangled. Every word was like a knife plunging into Marcus. He dropped into the blue plastic chair beside the bed without letting go of Matteo's finger. Izzy, I didn't know. If I had known, what would you have done? The question came out laden with all the accumulated pain. Would you have shown up here to demand rights over a baby after months of telling me my career was more important than our future? Would you have pretended you didn't hang up the phone every time I tried to talk to you? Marcus closed his eyes. The memories hit him like a tsunami. All those missed calls from Izzy he had deliberately ignored. The times he had seen her name on the screen and felt a mixture of hurt and rage that led him to reject every one of them. I thought you were calling to tell me you had met someone else, he admitted in a low voice. Or to rub in how happy you were without me. Seriously, Marcus? Izzy couldn't believe what she was hearing. After 3 years, you thought I was capable of something like that? A gentle knock interrupted the conversation. A kind nurse peeked in. Ms. Reyes, it's time for the 5 o'clock feed. Do you need help with breastfeeding? Izzy nodded, then looked at Marcus with uncertainty. You can stay if you want, but I have to feed him. Marcus immediately stood up. I'm going to get coffee. Do you want anything? Are you hungry? It was strange to see him so solicitous. A latte, please, and maybe something sweet. I haven't eaten properly in days. Marcus nodded and left the room, but not before taking one last look at Mateo. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, running his hands over his face. The smell of disinfectant mixed with the scent of flowers coming from the garden. His phone vibrated constantly with calls from the office, messages from worried partners, and alerts for missed meetings. For the first time in his adult life, Marcus Thorne completely ignored the corporate world. When he returned to the room, he found Izzy breastfeeding Mateo with a naturalness that left him breathless. I can wait outside if you prefer, he offered from the doorway. No, it's okay. Come in. Izzy had discreetly covered her chest with a small blanket. I've been alone for so long that I'd forgotten what it was like to have company. Marcus set the latte on the bedside table and sat down again in the chair. Izzy, I need you to know something. She looked up. When you left, I didn't hang up the phone because I didn't want to talk to you. I did it because every time I heard your voice, I remembered everything I had lost because of my damn pride. His voice cracked slightly. I was afraid you'd tell me you were happy without me. Izzy shifted Mateo's position so he could burp, and the baby let out a small sound that brought an involuntary smile to both of them. You know what the most ironic thing about all this is? She asked, looking at Marcus over her son's tiny head. The European tour was a complete disaster. 2 months in, I found out I was pregnant. I had horrible nausea and fatigue that kept me from dancing properly. I had to quit the tour halfway through and come back to New York. Marcus leaned forward. Why didn't you call me then? Because when I tried to, your secretary told me you had specific instructions not to put any calls through to me. She said you were very clear. If Ms. Reyes calls, tell her Mr. Thorne is permanently in a meeting. Izzy's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I never imagined that you would attempt to tell me I was going to be a father. The bitterness in his voice was palpable. That maybe I would need your support during the most difficult pregnancy of my life. At that moment, Mateo began to cry. It was a strong, determined cry that filled the entire room. Marcus stood up instinctively. What's wrong with him? He probably needs changing, Izzy said, rising with some difficulty. Her C-section was still causing her pain. Let me. The words escaped Marcus before he could think them. Izzy looked at him in surprise. Do you know how to change diapers? No, he admitted, but I can learn. For the first time since he had entered the room, Izzy smiled. It was a small, almost imperceptible smile, but it was real. Okay, but if you make it worse, I'll never forgive you. Just as Marcus was nervously approaching the portable crib where Izzy had placed Mateo, the baby stopped crying and opened those familiar green eyes. Hi, little guy, Marcus murmured, with a tenderness in his voice that Izzy had never heard. I'm your dad, and I'm going to learn to take care of you, I promise. But just as Marcus was about to pick up his son for the first time, the door flew open, and a familiar voice filled the room. "Izzy, I came as fast as I could. How is my grandson?" It was Mariana Reyes, Izzy's mother, an elegant and determined 55-year-old woman, who stopped dead in her tracks upon seeing Marcus leaning over the crib. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. What is he doing here? Part 4. The Final Storm. Mariana Reyes stood in the doorway like a Miami hurricane about to break. She was elegant and carried the natural authority of Andalusian women. Her honey eyes were identical to her daughter's, but right now, they shone with a contained fury that would have intimidated anyone. Anyone, except Marcus Thorne. "Ms. Reyes," he said, slowly straightening up, his hands not leaving the crib where Mateo rested. "I'm glad to see you." "Glad to see me?" Mariana's voice rose an octave, laden with disbelief. "After what you did to my daughter? After abandoning her pregnant? Mom, please." Izzy tried to intervene from the bed, but her mother silenced her with a look. "No, Izzy, this needs to be said." Mariana walked toward Marcus with the determination of a lioness protecting her cub. "You," she pointed her index finger at Marcus, "had 3 years to prove you could love my daughter without trying to cage her. 3 years to understand that a woman like Izzy needs to fly to breathe." Marcus clenched his fists but maintained his composure. "With all respect, ma'am, you don't know the whole story." "Oh, I don't?" Mariana crossed her arms. "I don't know that you forbade her from working weekends because Sundays were for the couple? I don't know that you canceled 3 important contracts she had signed because they involved working with dancers you considered too attractive? I don't know that you even suggested she quit dancing altogether to focus on being a good wife." Each accusation was like a whip. "I only wanted to protect her," he defended himself, though the words sounded weak even to him. "Protect her?" Mariana took a step closer. "Or control her? Because there is a very big difference between the two, young man." "Mom, enough!" Izzy managed to get out of bed with careful movements. "Marcus just met his son. This is not the time." "It is exactly the time," Mariana retorted, but her voice softened slightly, seeing the fatigue on her daughter's face. "Because if this man wants to be part of Mateo's life, he needs to understand that he can't just appear and disappear on a whim." Marcus looked at Mateo, who had begun to wave his tiny fists as if sensing the tension. Something in the fragility of those minute movements disarmed all his usual defensiveness. "She's right," he finally said, his voice hoarse. "You are completely right. For 3 years, I tried to mold Izzy to fit what I thought I needed." He turned to Mariana, and for the first time, she saw something more than the arrogant businessman. She saw a broken man. "I loved her so much that the thought of losing her drove me crazy. And in my desperation to keep her, I ended up doing exactly that, losing her." He ran a hand through his hair. "When she left, I thought the pain would eventually pass. But every day has been hell, Ms. Reyes. And now I find out I missed the first moments of my son's life, that she was alone in the hospital, and that my pride didn't just cost me the woman I love. It nearly cost me knowing this little miracle." Mariana studied Marcus's face. "Words are all well and good, Marcus," she finally said, her tone losing some of its harshness. "But Izzy doesn't need more pretty promises. She needs facts." "I know." Marcus approached the crib, and with infinite delicacy, stroked Mateo's flushed cheek. "And I want to start right now. I want to learn to change diapers, to prepare bottles, to recognize every type of cry. I want to be here when Izzy needs sleep, when the baby has colic at 3 a.m. And my company? It can run without me for a while longer, while I learn what truly matters." He pulled out his phone, and, in front of both women, called Eleanor. "Eleanor, I need you to reorganize my entire schedule for the next 2 months. Only accept meetings that are absolutely critical and can't be resolved by video conference. No, I'm not sick. I'm learning to be a father." Mateo chose that moment to start crying. "Can I?" Marcus asked Izzy. She nodded slowly. Clumsy but careful, Marcus lifted his son for the first time. Matteo looked even tinier in his large arms, but somehow he fit perfectly against his chest. Mariana watched the scene with critical eyes, but even she had to admit there was something moving about seeing this powerful man completely transformed by a 2-day-old baby. "All right," she finally said. "But if you hurt my daughter again, Marcus Thorne, I assure you there won't be a company big enough in this world to hide you from me." Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile he'd had in months. "I won't have to hide, ma'am, because it won't be necessary." Just then, a nurse announced the good news. Matteo could go home tomorrow morning. Home. The word hung in the air. Marcus looked at Izzy, a question unasked in his eyes. "And what if there's another option?" Izzy asked softly. "What if he stays in New York? With me?" Part 5. The Ghost of Doubt. 3 weeks after Mariana returned to Miami, domestic routine had begun to take shape in Izzy's Beacon Hill apartment. Marcus had transformed the small study into a personal refuge, but his work schedule was constantly being pushed to the limit. This Thursday morning, Marcus was in the kitchen when his phone rang insistently. It was Alex, Alvaro, his partner and best friend, who managed the international operations. "Marcus, I need you to come in right now." Alex's voice sounded tense, desperate. "The Japanese have decided to pull the $200 million Marbella investment. They're at the airport, leaving in 2 hours. Marcus felt his stomach clench. "Give me an hour. Try to hold them. An hour might be too late. Then do what you can." Alex hung up. From the bedroom came Matteo's cry, followed by Izzy's sleepy voice. "There's a crisis at the office. We might lose $200 million. If I don't show up now, we could lose everything." Izzy for presentory. Holding Matteo to her chest. "How long do you need?" "I don't know. It could be hours. It could be all day." "Go," she said, her voice strangely calm. "Are you angry?" he asked. "No," she replied, but there was something in her tone that suggested the opposite. "It's your job. I understand." Marcus rushed to the office. The next 3 hours were an exhaustive diplomatic battle. The Japanese had heard rumors that Marcus was disengaged, playing house, while delegating important decisions. The ultimate demand, signing an additional clause requiring his personal, 24/7 availability for the project for the next 2 years. Marcus knew it was exactly the kind of commitment that would pull him completely away from Izzy and Matteo. He stalled. When the Japanese left, Alex confronted Marcus. "What is wrong with you, Marcus? You're hesitating on the biggest opportunity of our careers." "I have other priorities." "Other priorities?" Alex lowered his voice. "Man, I get being a father is exciting, but you can't throw away everything we've built for a baby you didn't even know existed a month ago. Izzy Reyes is a smart woman who knows exactly what you're worth, and a baby is a very effective way to secure a financial future. Isn't it too convenient?" Alex's words hit Marcus like a physical punch. "What are you implying?" "I'm saying she's a gold digger. Go look at the dates." Interaction point 2. Do you think Izzy's intentions are genuine? Or is Alex right? Has the ghost of Marcus's old, controlling self returned? Or is he falling for a trap? Tell us your thoughts below. Marcus returned to the apartment at 6 p.m. Izzy was in the kitchen, Matteo sleeping in his bouncer. "How was it?" she asked without looking up. "Complicated. You've chosen work over us," she said, her voice calm but heartbroken. "Just like I knew you would. You can't change who you are." "I haven't chosen anything. It was an emergency." "It was an emergency. And tomorrow there will be another emergency, and the day after, another. I can't live always being second." Matteo woke up, crying from the tension. Izzy picked him up. "I'll handle it. After all, I'll have to get used to doing it alone." The words fell between them like a final sentence. Marcus watched her walk away, wondering if he had just lost his family on the same day he had saved his company, or if he had saved neither. Part 6. The Full Truth and the Proposal. 5 days later, Marcus was a wreck in his empty penthouse. Lena burst in like a storm. "You look awful. You are the biggest idiot I've ever met. How is Izzy?" "Destroyed. She cries every day. Matteo has colic and doesn't sleep at night. And she's exhausted trying to care for him while processing the fact that the man she thought had changed truly thinks she's a gold digger." Lena was making him an omelet. She said the worst part wasn't your accusation. It was realizing that after all you'd been through, you still didn't trust her. "I want to fix it. Tell me what to do." First, shower. You smell like a vagrant. Second, you have to choose definitively between the Marcus you were and the Marcus you want to be. There are no half measures this time. Lena also told him that Matteo stopped crying when Izzy played a recording of his voice, a recording from the day he was born, when he had promised to always be there. Marcus spent the next day restructuring his company, delegating daily operations, and buying out Alex's share. He called a private investigator, not to investigate Izzy, but to gather every document possible about Izzy Reyes's pregnancy, every appointment, every ultrasound. "I need to be able to prove to her that I trust her, and I need all the evidence possible for when someone else tries to plant doubts in my head." 2 days later, Marcus had a complete dossier confirming every detail of Izzy's story. The dates matched perfectly. More importantly, he found a letter in Izzy's doctor's file, a letter she wrote during the 5th month of her pregnancy. "Dr. Garcia, the baby's father and I are not together. I tried to contact him, but he has made it clear he doesn't want communication. I ask that if Marcus Thorne ever contacts you, you provide no details about my pregnancy without my explicit consent." Izzy hadn't been hunting his money. She had been actively protecting herself and Matteo from him. Marcus returned to the apartment, not with flowers, but with the folder. Izzy read the documents, confirming her innocence, then stopped at her own letter. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Because I need you to know that I know you were right about everything, that I was a coward and an idiot." He took a step back. "But I also need you to know that I've changed my company, my life, everything, to be the man you and Matteo deserve." The 5 minutes passed. Izzy gave him Matteo. Marcus held his son and finally broke down. "I read your letter. Izzy, I never imagined that you would be protecting yourself from me instead of pursuing me. I love you, and I am sorry." "I love you too, Marcus, but there are things you still don't know." Matteo was gently passed back to his mother. Izzy confessed the most difficult truth. In France, scared and alone, she had found emotional closeness with a French choreographer, Pierre. "I never slept with him, but there were moments of intimacy. For a while, I thought we could build a life together." She also revealed that Pierre had followed her to New York and showed up at the hospital the day Matteo was born. Lena chased him away before you could see him, but when he saw Matteo, when he saw those eyes identical to yours, he realized the truth. There was never any doubt about who the father is. Marcus felt a strange clarity. "You know what's the most amazing thing about all this? 2 weeks ago, this revelation would have destroyed me. But now, I realize that what matters is not that you considered other options when I had closed every door. What matters is that you chose to come back, that you chose honesty, even knowing it might push me away again." He handed Matteo back to her and took her face in his hands. "Izzy Reyes, will you give me the chance to spend the rest of my life proving that I've learned to trust? That I've learned that love is not control but freedom?" "What exactly are you asking me?" Marcus knelt down. "I'm asking you to marry me. Not for Matteo, not for convenience, but because I want us to be a real family. Because I want to be in the front row of all your shows. Because I want Matteo to grow up seeing that 2 people can love each other without destroying each other. Izzy's eyes shone with tears of happiness. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I want to marry you. 2 hours later, Marcus walked into Alex's office. I don't need to see your photographs, he said without preamble. I accept your offer to buy your share of the company. I'll pay you a fair price, but I want you gone in a month. You're choosing that woman over 15 years of partnership. Marcus smiled. I'm choosing my family over fear. I'm choosing trust over control. I'm choosing love over money. Part 2. The True Home. Miami, Florida. International Dance Festival. March 2027. The Olympia Theater was packed to the rafters. In the front row, Marcus Thorne held a 2-year-old Matteo in his arms, the little one fascinated by the stage lights. Matteo's green eyes, identical to his father's, followed every movement with the curiosity of a child raised between art and love. Where is Mommy? Matteo asked in his clear voice. She's coming out soon, little one. Mommy is going to dance for us and everyone else. Next to them, Mariana Reyes, now officially his mother-in-law, smiled as she watched the interaction between her son-in-law and grandson. Nervous? She asked Marcus. Always, Marcus admitted. But it's a different kind of nervous. It's no longer fear of losing her. It's pride. Pure pride. The music began. And there she was. Izzy Reyes Thorne, emerging from the shadows in a shimmering emerald gown. What impressed Marcus most was the absolute confidence she exuded. She was a woman who had found her place in the world, dancing not to escape anything, but to celebrate everything. Mommy! Matteo suddenly shouted, clapping his little hands. Izzy heard her son's voice above the music, and for an imperceptible moment, her eyes found her family in the front row. The smile that lit up her face was like the sun breaking through the clouds. An hour later, in the dressing room, Marcus embraced her. You were incredible. I'm the luckiest man in the world to be married to you. And Matteo was well behaved? He asked for you throughout the first half, but when you started dancing, he was hypnotized. I think he's going to be an artist like his mother, or an entrepreneur like his father, or both, Izzy replied. There are no rules that say he can't have it all. I was thinking, Izzy said, that maybe it's time for another beginning. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What kind of beginning? Izzy smiled, that mysterious expression he had learned to recognize as a prelude to important news. The kind of beginning that comes 9 months after deciding Matteo needs a little brother or sister. I'm 6 weeks pregnant. Marcus lifted her off the ground and spun her around. How is it possible that every time I think I can't love you more, you prove me wrong? Because real love has no limits, Izzy replied. And because we finally learned that growing together is better than trying to control each other. As they sat down, Matteo burst into the dressing room, running to his parents. Mommy, Daddy, you danced like a princess. Matteo, Izzy said, kneeling down. How would you feel if Mommy and Daddy told you that you're going to have a little brother or sister? Matteo's green eyes widened. Really? When? Will he be a boy or a girl? Will he be able to watch Mommy dance too? All those are great questions, Marcus laughed, and we are going to discover them together. Their new home was no longer defined by its wealth or its prestige, but by its warmth. Marcus's children would never know the loneliness that had defined his early life. They would grow up knowing they were loved unconditionally, that their parents had chosen to be together not out of convenience, but out of true love. He had learned that true control is letting go of control. She had discovered that real freedom comes from being completely known and loved. And they had demonstrated that happy endings, when they arrive after the real work of love, are truly the most beautiful beginnings of all. Did you believe that true love can overcome any obstacle when both people are willing to change and grow together? Share your experience or reflection in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe to our channel and leave a comment telling us what you thought. Your feedback and support mean the world to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories. End screen CTA. Part 8. The Real Work Begins. Winter 2028. 6 months after Liam, the new baby, was born, life in Manhattan was a chaotic, beautiful mess. Marcus and Izzy now had 2 young children, separated by 2.5 years. And Marcus had quickly learned that running a global corporation was far easier than managing the feeding and sleep schedules of 2 infants. On a cold Tuesday night, 3-year-old Matteo was running a high fever, and 6-month-old Liam was going through an aggressive teething phase. Izzy was exhausted after an intense rehearsal for her upcoming Broadway run. Marcus, who had promised himself he would always be present, had canceled a critical dinner with an Asian partner. He was bouncing Liam, trying to soothe Matteo, and simultaneously checking emails on his phone. "Is Liam down yet?" Izzy asked, emerging from the bathroom with eyes red from lack of sleep. "Almost," Marcus whispered. "Matteo just took the fever reducer and drifted off. You go to bed. I'll take the night shift." Izzy looked at him, not with love, but with weariness. "You seem anxious. Is it about the Asian partners? Alex emailed you. He said canceling this meeting will cost us control of the Chicago project." Marcus frowned. "Alex always exaggerates. I've delegated everything. I'll handle it in the morning." "But you're reading the email," Izzy pointed out. "You are here, but you are not entirely present. You are tense. I can see it. You are worried that my having 2 children and a demanding performance schedule is an unfair burden on you, or on your career." Silence fell. It was a truth Marcus didn't want to admit. He had changed, but the old reflexes of the workaholic remained. "I gave up everything for this family," Marcus said, his voice dropping. Izzy stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "I know that, and I love you for it. But love isn't a one-time sacrifice, Marcus. It's a continuous choice. I need you to trust that my career is not a burden. It is joy and fulfillment, which is what Matteo and Liam need to see in their mother." "I trust you," Marcus said, "but I don't want to lose control of that vital project." "Then let it go," Izzy said. "If Alex is still trying to manipulate you with the fear of loss, he still controls you. Let the project go, and you will prove that you are a present father and husband, not a perfect one." Marcus looked down at the peacefully sleeping Liam. He realized that the only way to truly prove his change to Izzy, and to himself, was not by grand gestures, but by choosing the mundane, messy reality of his family over the sterile perfection of a business deal. Part 9. The Test of the Mundane. Spring 2029. The spring brought new life and new tests. Marcus finally told his legal team to withdraw from the contentious Chicago project, effectively letting Alex win that small battle. The firm lost money, but Marcus gained something more valuable, a renewed sense of peace. He spent the next 2 weeks being fully present. He mastered Liam's complex feeding schedule. He read Matteo's favorite story about a dancing bear 50 times without looking at his phone. And he even helped Izzy with her choreography notes, his analytical mind proving surprisingly adept at organizing her artistic vision. Izzy's Broadway show, Rhythm and Ruin, opened to rave reviews. She was a sensation. Marcus attended every single opening night, holding Matteo and Liam backstage, creating a new family ritual. However, the next real crisis came not from work, but from their home life. A profound, quiet challenge that tested the foundation of their newly built trust. One afternoon, Izzy arrived home late from a matinee. Marcus was alone with Matteo, who was quietly drawing at the kitchen table. Liam was napping. "Hi, darling. How was the show?" Izzy said, kissing Marcus. "Great. Matteo and I had a successful afternoon. We drew a beautiful picture." Izzy looked at the paper. Matteo had drawn a picture of their family, but next to Marcus, there was another man, a shadowy figure drawn in charcoal with tall hair. "Who is this, sweetheart?" Izzy asked Matteo gently. "That's Uncle Pierre," Matteo said simply. "Mommy told me he taught her how to draw the waves when she was painting in France." Marcus froze. He hadn't known Izzy had mentioned Pierre to Matteo. He felt a sickening twist in his gut, a cold rush of that familiar venomous doubt. Why mention him now? What else did she tell him? Later that night, after the children were asleep, Marcus confronted Izzy. But his approach was different this time. He didn't accuse. He chose the vulnerability that Izzy had taught him. "Izzy," he began quietly, "Matteo drew a picture of our family today. He included Pierre." Izzy sighed. "Oh, honey, I should have told you. I brought up Pierre when Matteo asked me about the history of my seascape painting. I told him Pierre was a friend who helped Mommy through a sad time." "Why?" Marcus took a deep breath. Alex's voice, that old fear, it still whispers, Izzy. It asks why you would introduce him, even indirectly, into our children's narrative. It asks if you are romanticizing that time you spent without me. Izzy did not get defensive. She looked at him with profound tenderness. "Marcus, Pierre is part of my history, not my future. I talk about him because I don't believe in hiding the past from our children. Our love isn't about erasing what came before. It's about choosing what is now." She reached for his hand. "But I understand your fear. It's rooted in loss. So here is my promise. I will never hide the truth of my past from you, even the complicated parts. And I will never let a shadow replace your presence." How do I truly kill the doubt, Izzy? You don't kill it. You starve it. You feed the trust instead. And I have something to feed it with. I finally took your advice and looked at the financials of my company. I know what Alex tried to make you believe about my motives. Izzy walked to her bedside table and pulled out a single sheet of paper. I had my lawyer draw up a prenuptial agreement when we first got engaged. It states clearly that I waive all claim to Coal Dynamics and your premarital assets. It ensures that if we ever separate, my family and children will be provided for by my assets and my career earnings from dance, and your assets remain untouched. She handed the document to him. I never had you sign it because I wanted us to be a partnership of trust, not a legal shield. But I want you to read it now, Marcus. Not as proof of my innocence, you have that in my heart, but as proof of my intentions. I never wanted your money, Marcus. I just wanted your presence. Marcus looked at the waiver, the legal document that would have protected his entire fortune. Izzy had carried it with her all along, ready to walk away with nothing but her career and her children if he ever chose his fear over her. He suddenly felt a wave of crushing shame mixed with staggering love. He didn't need the document. He threw it into the fireplace without reading the fine print. "The only contract I need," he said, pulling her into his arms, "is the one we sign every morning when we wake up together." Part 10. A Legacy of Trust. Present day. 2 years later, Marcus was on a flight to London for a rare business trip. His phone was filled with photos. Matteo, now 5, teaching his 2-year-old brother Liam how to do a perfect plie in the living room. Izzy on stage, radiant, and one specific photo of Izzy, smiling at him from the gate before he boarded. His phone buzzed. It wasn't an email from Alex, who was now successfully running his own small, local firm, a peace treaty having been brokered after Marcus bought him out, but a text from Izzy. Image attached, a close-up of Liam's green eyes, smiling. Izzy, just thought you should know. Liam has your eyes, your stubbornness, and he only stops crying for Daddy's voice. We miss you, but we're fine. Go conquer the world. We'll be here. Marcus looked at the picture. He knew the $500 million deal he was flying to close was important for his company's legacy. But his true legacy was in that photo, in those green eyes and the trust they represented. He put his phone on airplane mode. He closed his laptop. He didn't even open his business brief. Instead, he pulled out a small notebook and started sketching a new design for a dance studio in their backyard for Izzy. He smiled. He was a billionaire, a titan of industry. But he was choosing to spend a cross-Atlantic flight designing a perfect floor for his wife's dance studio. He was finally, truly, free. He had learned that the only way to kill the doubt was to choose trust. Every single time. And that choice was, in itself, the most beautiful dance of all. What is the most difficult thing you've ever had to sacrifice for love? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey of trust and change, like this video and subscribe for more stories that redefine success. Thank you for watching. Part 11. The Legal Crucible. The legal battle became a spectacle. Alex's lawyers, relentless and highly paid, painted a picture of Marcus as the absent, controlling fiancé who abandoned Izzy, leaving her vulnerable to the affections of others, namely, Alex. Mr. Thorne, the opposing counsel, a sharp, aggressive woman named Ms. Vance, stated during the deposition, "Your business records indicate that you spent over 80% of your time in your office or traveling during the period when Ms. Reyes was hospitalized. Can you confirm that during the critical first month of your son's life, your former partner, Mr. Alex, was a more present figure in Ms. Reyes's life than you were?" Marcus looked at the judge. The question was designed to wound, to exploit his deepest fear. "No," Marcus replied calmly. "I was not present physically during that first month, and that remains the greatest regret of my life. My former partner, Alex, may have visited the hospital once for 10 minutes, but his presence there was defined by the spite he harbors for my family." "And what is your definition of presence, Mr. Thorne?" Ms. Vance challenged, smirking. Marcus leaned forward, speaking directly to the judge. "Presence isn't about timesheets or hospital visits, Your Honor. It's about choice. It's about being the person who answers the 3 a.m. cry. It's about restructuring a multi-million-dollar corporation so that a child knows their father prioritizes their bedtime story over the boardroom. It's about choosing to trust my wife when the voice of my past, represented by the plaintiff, told me to choose fear." He paused, his voice firm with conviction. "I chose to be a father who learned to change diapers, not just sign checks. I chose to be a husband who trusts his wife's honesty over a former partner's malice. Alex was at the hospital. I am in the life, and that is the difference that matters." Izzy's testimony was equally powerful. She didn't deny her fear and loneliness, but highlighted Marcus's transformation, producing the old resignation letter and the company restructuring documents as proof of his commitment. "Ms. Reyes," Ms. Vance pressed, "the plaintiff's filing suggests that the timing of your reconciliation with Mr. Thorne, immediately following his massive success, was financially motivated. Did you not consider that a wealthy partner would offer greater stability for your children?" "I considered stability," Izzy replied, looking directly at Marcus. "And I chose a man who was willing to lose his entire fortune rather than lose his family. That kind of love is the greatest asset I could ever give my children." Part 12. The final verdict. The judge's verdict came down 2 weeks later. The petition for joint custody was dismissed with prejudice. The judge sternly rebuked the plaintiff and their counsel for the malicious use of the court system, citing the overwhelming evidence of Marcus and Izzy's stable, loving family environment and the calculated attempts by the plaintiff's associates to undermine it. Alex's attempt to dismantle their family had failed spectacularly, instead serving only to reinforce the foundation of Marcus and Izzy's trust. That evening, the family was gathered on the floor of their living room, Mateo building a castle, Liam attempting to eat a block. "He lost everything," Marcus murmured to Izzy, watching his children. "He lost the lawsuit, his wife, and his credibility. He threw away everything for spite. And you gained everything, Izzy replied, leaning her head on his shoulder. You gained the confidence to know that the whispers don't matter anymore. You know what the final proof was? Marcus asked. I never had to ask you about the photo. I never asked you to sign a paternity test. I chose to trust your heart over the evidence designed to fool my eyes. Izzy kissed him gently. That's the contract, Marcus. That's the one that lasts forever. Marcus looked at the beautiful, chaotic scene before him. The success he sought now wasn't measured in revenue, but in the trust he shared with his wife and the security his presence gave his sons. Final CTA. What do you define as presence in a relationship? Is it time or is it choice? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you believe Marcus and Izzy earned their second chance, like and subscribe for more.